Yo, 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 yo. Here we go. We're going to talk about slope and something new called the y-intercept. So what we're doing today is we are going to determine the slope and y-intercept of a line. So we have seen this formula before. Y equals mx plus b. Now, this also looks like, so we've seen it in actual action where it looks something like, ooh, that was a weird. So this would be an example of y equals mx plus b. Now, each one of these values in y equals mx plus b has a certain, is a part of, each one of these numbers and each one of these letters has some type of meaning to it. So this is a linear equation, which means if an equation looks like this, it is the equation of a line. If I were to graph this by making a table, it's going to make a line. Now, what we know is that this 2 right here in the m, this is considered the slope. So that number is always your slope of the line. The y and the x are just points on that line. And then the b is considered the y-intercept. So let's put a star next to the 0b part right here. The b is the y-intercept. So this particular equation right here has a slope of 2 and has a y-intercept of 3 because this is the number afterwards. Now, y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So on every single graph, the y-axis is this one right here. The y-intercept is wherever a line crosses that y-axis. Intercept means to intersect or to cross. So the y-intercept is wherever it crosses the y-axis. So it's really whenever x is 0, whatever my y is my y-intercept. So for this one with my y-intercept of 3, that would be the point of 0, 3, 0, 3. Okay, so let's get into some examples. All we're doing today is we are going to figure out what is the slope and what is the y-intercept. Okay, so to find slope, it's still rate of change. So we still find slope the same way as we have done before. For the y-intercept is also known as the initial value. If we want to star that and put initial value under our key terms, let's do that, please. The reason why that's super important is that's really for like the context of word problems. So in this word problem, a phone salesperson is paid a minimum weekly salary. So it means no matter how many phones they sell, they make the same amount every week. And then they actually get commission. Commission is money that you earn for each phone that you sell. So let's say, so they're every time they sell a cell phone, they make more money. They make commission per cell phone. So what we want to do is we want to write an equation that represents this situation. We want to figure out, well, what's that initial value? What's their minimum weekly salary? And then we want to figure out how much money they make per cell phone. So this is where I find my rate of change, because the rate of change is going to tell me how much they make per cell phone. So the left side is my x, the right side is my y, but the left side says the number of phones sold. So if they sold 10 cell phones, they made $480 total. That's including the salary and their commission. So to figure out how much money they make per phone, I want to figure out the change in y over the change in x. So from 480 to 630, I'm going to do some subtraction. And then I got to compare that to the change in x. I'm going to do 20 minus 10. Well, the change in x was 10. And then the change in the income from 630 to 480 is $150. So this represents my rate of change. I can simplify that to figure out that they are making $15 for every one cell phone. So every time they sell a cell phone, they make $15. So that's my slope. So if I were to write that as an equation, it would be y equals 15x. But now I got to figure out what's that weekly salary. That's that initial value. So the initial value is whenever there's 0 phones sold. So if we notice the pattern here, if the change in X each time is going up 10, I could go backwards and I could go down 10. If I go down 10, I go to 0. Because 10 plus 10 is 20, 20 plus 10 is 30, 30 plus 10 is 40, 10 minus 10 is 0. So, and then the change in Y during that pattern is up 150. So I can subtract 150 from 480 here. What I'm doing is I'm taking the pattern of the rate of change and I'm going backwards until I get X is 0. And when I do 480 minus 150, I found out that they started, if they sold 0 cell phones, they would have still made $330. That's their minimum salary. So every week they make $330 plus $15 per cell phone. So my slope is 15. My y-intercept is 330 because they start at $330 and then they make $15 for every phone. And the way I did that is I took my slope, my rate of change, my change in y over my change in x, and I went backwards until I had x was 0. Because the definition of the y-intercept is whenever x is 0, whatever your y is. So for this one right here, I want to find the slope and the y-intercept of this particular table. So the first thing I have to do is I have to figure out my slope. I have to figure out what's the rate of change here. What's my pattern? And it looks like it's going up 10 each time. And then when it goes up 10, it's also going up 2. So my change in y is 10, my change in x is 2. So my slope is 5. Now to find my y-intercept, I have to take this table and go backwards. Because if I go down 2, that's going to take me to 0. But then I also have to go down 10, which is going to take me to 12. I'm just recognizing this pattern and taking it backwards for when x is 0. Because when x is 0, my y is 12, the y-intercept is 12, which gives me an equation of 5x plus 12. There's my y-intercept, there's my slope. If I'm looking at a graph, I want to find my slope and my y-intercept. To find slope, we count the rise and we count the run. So my rise, I find my 2 perfect points and I count my rise. Well, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I went down 4, so that's negative 4. And I go over 1, 2. So my slope is rise over run, which is negative 4 over 2. I can simplify that. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So my slope is negative 2. My y-intercept is wherever this graph crosses the y-axis. Well, notice how this says y here. This is the y-axis. And it crosses it right here. And at the point when my x is 0, my y is 1. This is that y is 1, so the y-intercept is just 1. So that is the y-intercept. So then that makes my equation of y equals negative 2x plus 1. That's all I got for you. Okay, so things to remember. Slope equals rise over run. And then y-intercept is when x equals 0. Okay, try these two on your own. Thank you for watching. Gradius out.